I described yesterday how inflation is hurting families all across our country. Since then, yet another key economic indicator has set an unfortunate record. In the last year, wholesale prices grew at their fastest pace on record. Anyone with a shred of sense knows this is the absolute wrong time to unleash a multi-trillion-dollar taxing and spending spree. Every single day brings new evidence our Democratic colleagues should give the country a break. But the cost of Washington Democrats' latest obsession isn't the only problem. The context of what they want to pass is actually just as bad. We've known since the start of COVID pandemic that Democrats saw it as an opportunity to transform American society. They've actually been quite candid about that. And the reckless taxing and spending spree they're riding behind closed doors is a Trojan horse to let the radical left dictate intimate details to American families. There's a long list of policies inspired by the authors of the Green New Deal, a whole slew of new programs and mandates aimed at fitting the entire country's systems for producing and consuming energy into sort of a California-shaped box. Special subsidies for expensive lifestyle choices like electric vehicles and electric bicycles. New red tape to strangle the most reliable and affordable sources of American industries, of American energy. Subsidies for supply chains that China dominates so that America borrows in order to build back Beijing. And don't forget the so-called Civilian Climate Corps, just what we need at a time of inflation and labor shortages, a Potemkin make-work program for liberal activists. Of course, Washington Democrats intend to grab greater control over the development of America's young people long before they're eligible for made-up green jobs. The spree contains a massive toddler takeover that insults the diversity of American families and their aspirations. It only throws money at a subset of secular child care centers that woke bureaucrats happen to favor. Forget faith-based options. Forget flexible part-time arrangements. Forget being remotely fair to families with a parent at home. Democrats want to bring their inflation into child care and make daycare more expensive, more inflexible, and more unfair. And then there's the latest offensive in a long campaign to restrict more of America's health care choices. Democrats' plan would mean more one-size-fits-all programs, more government control, a wet blanket over the world-leading innovation pipeline that creates new cures, and a further gamble with seniors' Medicare when the trust fund is already in danger of insolvency. Then there are the massive tax hikes our colleagues want to use to cover the bill. All those radical changes, all those big government intrusions into family life compared with a crushing tax hikes that would hit our country like a ton of bricks. There are new surcharges on individual taxpayers. There are tax hikes for pass-through businesses. There's a brand new radical scheme to make American industries less competitive that Senate Democrats scribed down with no hearings or committee process. President Biden promised he wouldn't raise taxes 1 penny on anyone making less than $400,000. But experts agree that Democrats' tax hikes would break that promise. People with far less income would be affected. So for goodness sake, in 2022, their bill would give a bigger percentage tax cut to people making more than $1 million every year than to families that pull in between $75,000 and $100,000. That's according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. The average person who makes upward of $1 million gets a bigger tax break from Democrats' bill than the average household that makes just under 6 figures. In large part, that's because of an absurdly expensive tax giveaway the Democrats want to hand out to benefit high-income earners in blue states. Their SALT policy would make the federal government subsidize the property tax bills of people with mansions who choose to live in high-tax states. It's an insane proposition. and it's struggling to even earn support from Democrats rank and file. But their leaders from New York and California are obsessed with it. So go figure. But SALT is only just the beginning of the gravy train this bill steers toward Democrats' pet projects and causes. There's also a tax code tweak that would create a special deduction for union dues, while letting one for charitable contributions actually expire. Another special incentive to the tune of $10 billion would help liberal colleges and universities indoctrinate students in new environmental justice programs, whatever that is. Still others would pour $29 billion into funding a national green bank, $2.5 billion into increasing, listen to this, tree equity, $1.67 billion to bail out news outlets, and an extra billion on top for improving climate resilience of Pacific salmon. An extra billion on top for improving climate resilience of Pacific salmon. And then, of course, there are the extra special ways Democrats want to use this bill to fulfill more personal hometown priorities. Speaker Pelosi didn't end up getting to earmark millions of federal dollars for redeveloping a park in her district, but she did secure one congressman's vote for upping the funding for a defunct regional commission that largely benefits his district by 13,000%. That's old school vote buying, Madam President, Mr. President, a slap in the face to taxpayers. Our own colleague, the Democratic leader, has pledged to use all of his power to personally steer tens of billions of dollars toward a hometown New York City housing authority with a long and storied reputation of corruption, mismanagement, and scandal. So it's hard to wrap your head around all this. That is, unless you subscribe to Washington Democrats' apparent core principle. When the American people are footing the bill, the menu is all you can eat.